because I know your love for music and your
Mm.
love for certain bands. So I think it would be interesting to get your take on this. But what were the bands or artists that had the biggest impact on you and why, Tim?
Well, that's an extremely loaded question right there. So I think you have to you did not determine a distinction, like, at what point. But does that really matter? No, because
Yeah.
there's lots of artists that have influenced me over the years, whether it be just based on musical progression in my life, like going
Yeah.
from, one style to another. I mean, obviously when I was much younger, I wasn't listening to, heavy metal and hard rock and stuff as much as I was until my teen years. And I grew up a little bit and I realized I had a pair of ears and there was other shit out there
Yep.
that, I could listen to. And maybe I had a different group of friends, but, you know, I- can I say several? I can say several. It says, what were the bands or artists? So
Yeah.
I'll start with the ones that probably to most people would seem the most obvious. So certainly the first three albums I ever purchased in my life, the very first album I ever purchased was Judas Priest, Screaming for Vengeance.
Wow.
That was without question probably one of the more influential bands of my youth. Now that was blended in with, stuff like Van Halen and
Yeah.
AC/DC, but they were kind of like mainstream kind of thing. Priest wasn't really, they were a little bit more of a fringe, heavier type band. So Judas Priest for sure. And it also helped with my first girlfriend ever because she was the biggest Judas Priest fan on the planet. I don't think she is anymore. She's all grown up and super smart, so I'm sure she's left that in the past. But then Ozzy Osbourne was definitely one of them. You have to keep in mind I was born in '68. That makes me 55 now.
Yep.
So I was pretty much right in that transitional period where Zeppelin and the Stones and the Who and AC/DC. Well, AC/DC is a little bit different animal, but that stuff was kind of becoming classic rock, and then the harder rock was coming into play. So, Sabbath was probably still a little kind of like quantified as more classic rock because Ozzy had moved on. And then ultimately, in terms of metal bands from that era was Queensryche. Queensryche for me was
Queensryche.
probably the one band that just kind of pushed me way over the edge because I had never experienced anything like that style. They definitely were trendsetters from a progressive standpoint. And then the guilty pleasure. So I've no shame in my game. You can cancel me if you want to. I don't give a shit.
Hit us. Hold on,
My
Tim.
guilt.
Hold
You
on,
want to
Tim.
take a guess?
Let me build it up. Let me build it up.
Okay. There's a drum roll going on. So. Hall and Oates. Of all the bands, yeah, they were my guilty pleasure band. I remember getting the H2O album vis-a-vis Columbia House Records when you had to pick 13 records for 1 penny and then basically sign your life away to a collector coming after you for not returning the tape every month that you were supposed to send back. So Hall & Oates, and ironically, I never did see them as a kid. They were always a favorite. I mean, they're from the 70s. I mean, they go way
Yeah,
back.
they go way back.
So, I mean, they weren't any young band by the time I got into them. I think I picked up right around the Man Eater and Kiss on my list, and those kinds of songs were like the ones that were sort of in my wheelhouse. Sarah Smile, I learned to love after a while because I had never really heard their earlier stuff. But I did get to see them finally. I can't remember what year now. It was in, I want to say, early 2000s. I did get to go see Hall & Oates in Atlantic City. They played. And
wow,
dare I say, while it was a great show, I finally got to see one of my bucket list bands in my life. It was weird because I kind of expected it to be sort of the MTV experience and everything would sort of be at the same tempo. But it was very Vegas-y. You know what I mean? Like they kind of slowed the songs down. It was a lot more production going on. And of course, everybody standing around me was probably about 10 to 15 years older than me. So I felt like you're hanging out with your parents the whole night. So, but yeah, that's it.
Nothing wrong with hanging out with your parents at a concert. Just
They weren't my parents, but I was like, look at all them old fogies over there. And I'm,
old people, parents, same thing.
Yeah. I could not picture myself going to an